The FIFA World Cup. Every 4 years, the world unites for soccer, national pride, and, let's be honest, a bit of daytime drinking. But as the 2026 tournament approaches, co-hosted by the US, Mexico, and Canada, excitement is being replaced by calls for a boycott. The reasons? Explosive cartel violence in Mexico and a tense political climate in the US have many questioning if the world's biggest party is now a global risk. Instead of planning trips, fans are asking, will I be safe? Is this worth it? This video unpacks the drama, exploring whether the 2026 World Cup will be a celebration or a historic disaster. Guadalajara, a key host city, is now infamous for cartel warfare. In February, the Mexican army killed CJNG cartel boss, El Mencho, sparking nationwide chaos. Cartel retaliation paralyzed 20 states, left 74 dead, and turned cities like Guadalajara into war zones. The violence forced soccer games to be suspended and cast doubt on the safety of fans and players. Guadalajara is set to host major matches, but the recent carnage makes that prospect deeply unsettling. Mexico City and Monterrey avoided the worst, but the shadow of violence looms over the entire tournament. The world is watching, wondering, can Mexico guarantee safety when it can't control its own streets? Across the border, a different kind of story unfolds, one that challenges the very ideals America claims to represent. The United States, long seen as a beacon of hope and opportunity, now finds itself at the center of a heated debate about human rights and civil liberties. The controversy brewing here isn't just about immigration policy, it's about the soul of the nation. As the world's eyes turn to the US for the World Cup, Americans themselves are grappling with questions of justice, fairness, and what it truly means to be a welcoming host. The issue isn't cartel violence, but a climate of political tension and aggressive immigration enforcement. In recent years, the presence of law enforcement at public events has become more visible and more intimidating, especially for immigrants and people of color. Despite calls for compassion, ICE has refused to pause operations during the World Cup, raising fears that international fans, many of whom have traveled thousands of miles, could be detained or even deported for expressing political opinions or simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, have sounded the alarm. They warn that the US is not living up to its promises of freedom and safety, especially for those who dare to speak out against its policies or who come from marginalized backgrounds. Recent unrest in American cities, fueled by divisive rhetoric and heavy-handed policing, has only heightened these concerns. The images of protests, clashes, and mass arrests are fresh in the minds of many, casting a shadow over the country's reputation as a land of liberty. For countless fans, the dream of attending a World Cup in America, a once-in-a-lifetime experience, now comes with a sense of unease. Instead of excitement, there's anxiety. Will they be watched, questioned, or even targeted simply for who they are or what they believe? The threat isn't from criminals, but from the state itself. Surveillance cameras, police patrols, and security checkpoints are everywhere, creating an atmosphere of suspicion rather than celebration. The US is supposed to roll out the welcome mat for the world, but for many, that welcome feels more like a warning, a reminder that the American dream can quickly become a human rights nightmare. At the center of the storm is FIFA President Gianni Infantino. Instead of calming tensions, Infantino has cozied up to former President Trump, even awarding him FIFA's inaugural Peace Prize at the World Cup draw. This move sent a clear message. FIFA's leadership is aligning with controversial politics, not standing above them. For human rights groups, this is a red flag. FIFA seems uninterested in addressing real concerns. The Infantino-Trump alliance signals that politics aren't just part of the game. They're running the show. Any hope of FIFA pressuring hosts for reform seems naive. The organization's moral compass appears to be spinning wildly, prioritizing power over principle. So, how have FIFA and local officials responded? With relentless optimism, despite all evidence to the contrary. After the Guadalajara violence, Infantino declared he was very reassured and promised a spectacular event, offering no real security details. Mexican officials echoed the sentiment, insisting there's no risk to fans and that Guadalajara will remain a host city. This disconnect between official statements and reality is staggering. Instead of addressing threats, organizers seem more concerned with protecting the tournament's image. Their reassurances are only fueling more suspicion and anxiety. The world isn't buying the official narrative. soccer federations and human rights groups are voicing deep concern. Portugal's federation questioned whether it's safe to play in Mexico, a major crack in FIFA's facade of unity. Amnesty International and others are lobbying for concrete safety guarantees, framing the tournament as a test of global values. Most governments are cautious, balancing safety, public opinion, and the massive stakes of a World Cup. No major federation has endorsed a boycott yet. But as the tournament nears, the pressure to act is mounting. The world is watching, waiting for someone to make the first move. Has any team ever actually boycotted a World Cup? It's a question that comes up every time controversy swirls around FIFA or a host nation. With the World Cup being the most watched sporting event on the planet, you might expect that at some point, a country would have taken a stand and refused to participate for political or ethical reasons. Surprisingly, the answer is no. At least, not for the kinds of political reasons that have led to Olympic boycotts. While there have been withdrawals and absences, these have usually been due to logistical issues, disagreements with FIFA, or internal problems within a country's football association, rather than a coordinated protest against a host nation's policies. The closest example came in 1966, when all African nations withdrew from World Cup qualifying. Their protest wasn't aimed at the host country, but at FIFA itself, after the organization refused to guarantee Africa a direct spot in the tournament. Instead, African teams were forced to compete against Asian teams for a single place, which was seen as deeply unfair. In contrast, the Olympics have a long history of high-profile boycotts. The most famous was in 1980, when the United States and dozens of other countries refused to attend the Moscow Games in protest of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. 4 years later, the Soviet Union and its allies retaliated by boycotting the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, leaving many events with noticeably fewer competitors and empty seats. But soccer is different. The World Cup is more than just a tournament. It's a global celebration that unites nations, fans, and players in a way few other events can. For many countries, qualifying for the World Cup is a once-in-a-generation achievement, and the idea of giving that up is almost unimaginable. Fans and federations often feel that a boycott would hurt their own people more than it would send a message to the host. That's the enormous challenge facing those calling for a boycott of the 2026 World Cup. Activists and some politicians argue that participating would legitimize controversial decisions or policies, but convincing entire nations to walk away from the world's biggest sporting stage is a monumental task. For a boycott to succeed, it would require a powerful, unified movement, one that persuades national teams, federations, and fans that the moral stakes truly outweigh the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to compete on the world stage. It's a decision that would spark intense debate and soul-searching within every soccer-loving nation. If it ever happened, it would be unprecedented, and it could change the world of sports forever, sending shockwaves far beyond the pitch. So, what's next for the beautiful game? As the world turns its eyes to the horizon, the future of soccer feels more uncertain than ever before. The sport, once a symbol of unity and joy, now stands at a crossroads, its fate hanging in the balance. The 2026 World Cup teeters on a knife's edge, caught between hope and controversy. The anticipation that usually surrounds this global event is now mixed with anxiety and skepticism. Stadiums that should be filled with excitement are instead shadowed by questions about safety, ethics, and the true spirit of competition. Most likely, the tournament will go ahead, but under a cloud of protest and diminished enthusiasm. Symbolic protests, diplomatic boycotts, and public outcry are already shaping the narrative. Around the world, fans and activists are making their voices heard, demanding accountability and change from those in power. Low international attendance could mar the event, with empty seats serving as a stark reminder of the controversy. The energy that once electrified stadiums may be replaced by a sense of unease, as many choose to stay away in protest or out of concern for their safety. But if violence escalates or a major incident occurs, a real boycott could happen, triggering chaos for FIFA and a permanent stain on its reputation. The world would watch as the organization scrambles to contain the fallout, and the legacy of the tournament could be forever tarnished. Whatever unfolds, this World Cup is a reckoning for FIFA and global sport. The decisions made now will echo for years to come, shaping not just the future of soccer but the values and priorities of international sport as a whole. The controversies expose the dangers of awarding tournaments to nations with deep security and human rights issues. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about the intersection of politics, money, and the games we love. For fans, it's a heartbreaking dilemma: support the game, or take a stand against the context in which it's played. The passion for soccer runs deep, but so does the desire for justice and integrity. As the world waits to see what happens next, one thing is clear: the beautiful game is at a turning point, and its next chapter will be written not just on the field, but in the hearts and minds of everyone who loves it.